Yes. All righty.
George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. So this past week, the Well of Hope Church was packed with a whole lot of people, and they were talking about an issue in the community that we're all concerned about. So Yolanda Seegars is the project coordinator for Project Rise. I never heard of it. So here we go. Let's find out what it is and how it's connected to On Point for Syracuse and what the purpose is, what the plan is. And I was going to say reduce youth violence, I guess, or promote positive youth outcomes. A lot of ways to look at that. But Yolanda, you tell me what it's all about. Good to have you on the program.
Well, thank you for having me here in order to get the message out there in regarding to what Project Rise is and why we came up with this initiative in this way, because it was a community-led initiative. So last year, Governor Hochul announced to the community that they want to drop $2 million on us. And I happen to be a part of that steering committee, where initially that steering committee was the makeup of what I would say what my community looks like, nor the people in the community that support the youth and the families in the community in various areas, from substance abuse, mental health.
Yep. So you said it didn't look like, or it did look like?
It did not.
Let's get that clear. Okay. All right.
Yes, it did not. And so really getting those people around the table, or trying to, right, in attempts to get them around the table to have a conversation of what they feel that will work. Mm-hmm. So that's a shared conversation with families, the youth, community leaders, whoever was willing to have that conversation, and to really give suggestions on what we feel that will work. And so while we had eventually we got all the partners around the table. And of course, when we're talking money and you're running organizations, of course, you want to know how we can spend that money. And then we will give our idea. But that wasn't necessarily the state vision. Part of community violence intervention is getting the community buy-in. But I learned this weekend after the facilitation of the community meeting that it's important to get the community's commitment, not buy-in.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Talk about the difference between the two.
So the facilitator, Charles Dotson, because I usually use that 80% buy-in, in order to assist with change. And he was like, well, that's the only thing I disagree with Yolanda on. It's not necessarily buy-in, because we want them to be bought in, of course, but that will mean only limited money is there. That will mean that they really aren't trying to address the needs. They're just checking boxes. They are just doing the bare minimum. And when they're committed, they're going to do what's right. They're going to problem solve. They're going to come to the table. They're going to try to go above and beyond. They're going to really look at the root of the problem. Surfing, but not just going to the skim of the issue and then addressing that. They really are going to look at best practice. They're going to look at the objective of what we want to do, and then say, okay, if we want to do reduction of gun violence, what will the family need? What will the direct service worker need in order to support this? What will the organization need in order to have the capacity in order to support this? And so to expect the community who does not have the language to even know what it is to do to decrease gun violence, but even to do a CBT therapy session that's going to assist with cognitive distortions, right? And so those are the things that we know that will work and support. Now, when I say will work, I don't mean that it's going to work for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I mean it's going to work for the percentage of the population that we're planning to work with, and those who we aren't catching. We're going to look at that data and say, what can we do next? All too often, Syracuse is resource rich. We hear a lot of people saying, there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there.
Right. I disagree with that.
I disagree with that fully. I feel that there's a lot out there, but what is lacking is education regarding what's out there. So if I'm a family that has been struggling with whatever it is, so I'm just going to utilize poverty as an example. Mm-hmm. And my lifestyle has been of such where I really don't navigate the systems. I only navigate these systems based on what my need of these systems are. And when I normally navigated these systems, I feel Like they don't trust me. They don't like who I am. They don't like what I am. They are giving me the bare minimum of service. They're expecting that I'm going to fail. They're not providing the services that they provide for everyone else that may not look like me. And it may just be a feeling. But I can go based on my lived experiences. And when I had to interact with these same systems, I go back to what that felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And so now if we're looking at
what did it feel like?
So for me to be a mother who's raising 2 children and have to go to these systems, regardless if I'm working or not, to assume that I don't have a job, to assume that I don't want best for my child, to assume if my child is doing bad in school, that I don't have the skill set in order to support her. But I may not, because there's no handbook that comes with special needs. There's no handbook that comes with learning disabilities. I have to learn the skill set. And if that academic system is not giving me the prescription, and I'm not able to create a dosage on how I need to do for my daughter, that's not my fault, because I'm operating in lag. That same skill lag that you are seeing within my daughter in that system, you're seeing within inside me in this household, and have an expectation of me to change it.
Mm-hmm.
That's disempowering.
Right.
And so it's like figuring out how we can empower, but also energize them so they now can take hold of what they want and they see for their future. So really combining all that stuff together.
Yeah. Speaking of energy, I can see how you got this job because you got energy.
I do have energy. I have passion. When it comes to being born and raised in Syracuse,
where'd you go to school? Now we got to get all that. Now, where'd you go to school?
Oh, listen. Okay, now here we go. Gonna be like, oh yeah, I figure she went to this school. Nottingham Bulldogs, class of '94. Been working since I came back to Syracuse in '99 in this field. Worked in various levels from direct service to supervisor to community schools director, and to now this. I'm not big on titles, but I'm big on the work. Sure. And I'm passionate because I feel like we are always giving fingers pointed at us with no support on how we can solve the problems for us. And everybody goes, well, y'all have the answers. You have not necessarily, not based on a middle class structure that was formed without us. And we're living in poverty for all these years and now expected just to know and have the knowledge on how to navigate that system. If I had I did have the privilege. Yep, go ahead.
No, you finish.
Yeah, I did have the privilege. Oh, I did have the privilege of having a mom, regardless of our economic status, who said arts was important for us. And no, she didn't define academics the way that most parents probably did back in the days. I was in control over that. But she still was an amazing mom. Mm-hmm. But put me in opportunities where I can see academics based on what I needed to see and view, and allowed me to create my own definition and that guidance piece. I was lucky. I was able to navigate it a little bit.
You're listening.
Not all our youth have that.
Yolanda Seegars is the project coordinator for Project Rise. We'll tell you what Rise meets in a moment. In the middle of a conversation, I want to go back to something you just said.
Yes.
Because it struck me. You said middle class standards, but we were living in poverty and those two didn't match. Let's say more about what you mean by that, because that's like a shade in some instances, because I'll tell you what I heard. What I'm hearing you say is that people are bringing to you a cookie cutter that don't work in the system that people aren't used to navigate. That's how I'm interpreting that.
And I appreciate you interpreting it as such. Because if I'm dealing with, and that's cultural competency, exactly what you just described, right? And so the way we had to navigate poverty and the way that we had to create resiliency, the way that we had to understand the system and navigate the system didn't look like our counterparts that may have came up in poverty. Being that they do operate in privilege, they may not understand it just by their race, they are afforded opportunities that didn't come to us or for us, but we had to push through. We had to be strong. We had to be smarter. We had to be able to have that support, that tribe. But now if I come from a community that my tribe consists of my cousins who have my back, grandma who's hustling however she need to get it to make sure that I'm going to school, I'm going to trust grandma. She's going to be my inspiration. But then I'm going to have old Boyd up the block and I see what he's doing. I know what he's doing, but I see he's getting money. He's taking care of his family. And the world says I'm supposed to take care of my family. But we're not assisting them with navigating their consistent trauma. But we have this expectation based on our norms, our own personal norms of what someone else should do and how they should do it. And we have never even had to walk in their footsteps. Now we come up with these. Yep, go ahead.
No, you finish. I want people to hear.
You come up with these best practices and say, this is what's going to work in this community, but never step foot in this community. We have executive leaders who are saying, well, we don't know what's work. We want to make something that works. And so that's why I was lucky to be at the table to discuss Project Rise. And Project Rise was Governor Hochul's initiative to support the Syracuse community, as well as other areas, in the reduction of gun violence based on utilizing the community as the catalyst to create that change.
What does RISE stand for?
Oh, now you want to test me. Now you want to give me a test and I don't have my PowerPoint in front of me. And I will make sure that I know this before. Respond, invest, sustain, and empower. So RISE stands for respond, invest, sustain, empower.
Okay.
But we were allowed to create what we wanted based on community data, youth data, some shared experience from those steering committee members, and hear what worked previously in our community and hear what's been happening over the last couple of years as far as funding and things of that magnitude. And as I said previously, I've been privileged to work within this community in this field and various system serving agencies.
Yeah.
For 4 to 5 years or more. So I was able to see how those systems work and how they align with the juvenile justice system. And prior to taking this position, I was working with Damian Pratt and Kristen Jackson at probation. And I was supporting 2 organizations to build capacity to do work in regards to decreasing the recidivism of the youth that are on their caseload.
Yeah.
And those organizations shared with me how they wanted to move forward, their barriers. I was looking at the community barriers. And, it shouldn't be about money that stops us from doing the work that we think that works for our families. But what happens is the county had a thought, and they are giving providers money to do some amazing work, but the support that is needed to progress monitor, to get the community buy-in so they can wrap around the work that these awesome organizations are doing isn't there. So when I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, it looks like they're really just operating on the checkbox system. And this is me being really transparent, because I was really transparent with them and saying, because best practices are, data management, supporting the function of the behavior, doing some things. And if the organizations, that's not their skill set, what is the obligation of the contract providers to give them the skill set so we can meet the family's needs?
So what is Project Rise going to actually do? Right? And I say that with respect, right?
And I appreciate it.
Right? In the sense that you said we're a resource-rich community and we got a lot of things that aren't necessarily being accessed or necessarily working, or we're impatient as a community because while we have all these resources and all of these things, we're still seeing the tick, tick, tick up.
Yeah.
So before you answer that question, you mentioned barriers.
Yes.
And I'm interested in that as well, because you had your meeting, you had what you expect or hope was commitment from the community. And by the way, this was just
Mhm.
a Southside meeting. You're going to have meetings in other parts of the community. So barriers and when this
Yes.
project Rise, what are you trying to do? And what do you need from us to make this make a difference? So what does it look like? Barriers and what does it look like?
So, okay. So I'll start with what it looks like when we are finally in the process of implementation. I feel like I'm cutting off.
Go ahead. You good?
Okay.
I'm
Far as the process
managing
of
this, so you're good. You're all right.
Oh, okay, cool beans. Just making sure. So what it will look like in full implementation. Hillside is one of the organizations that receive funding. And so Hillside, Good Life Foundation, as well as CCA and On Point. So they were required to choose and select grassroots organizations to partner with. And so those grassroots organizations are the community organizations that we're feeding into. So eventually they can be the ones who are sustaining this work. So these grassroots organizations are getting support to turn their business into a well-oiled machine while still supporting these youth in the community. Okay, so we have Hillside. So one of the things from previous town halls that were a complaint that needed to be addressed was family support. And how are we supporting these families? And the families really don't know what they're doing. And the families, all the problems that the families have. I agree that the families need onus in this. And because a lot of that foundational stuff starts at home, but maybe the foundational stuff isn't the issue. But in order for us to really understand what the issue is, we need someone to work directly with the family to identify their goals. And that's what Hillside is going to do. They're hiring a family navigator to work directly with the families. And then they're also hiring a credible messenger who is trained to work directly with the youth. And now they also are hiring a care manager. So a team of 3 to work with 30 families per 6-month cohort to support them with identifying their goals, working through their goals, and now achieving their goals. And alongside that, they have multiple agencies, a total of, I believe, 10. It's 10 agencies that now we can tap into to provide additional services to support generalization of the skills. Okay. So now we have organizations like an Image Initiative. Image Initiative expanded their service when they're usually partnering with Syracuse City School District to bring girls up to SU to partner and have an awesome self-care event. And it's a very good bonding experience for young ladies. But if I'm a young lady who has juvenile justice experience and I happen to be coming out of placement and I'm not really going to school, I would not necessarily have this opportunity to grow like these other young ladies and understanding secondary education. But now Image Initiative has the ability to expand to provide weekly groups for these young ladies, focus groups, and they will have an academic lens focus as well as self-care and mental health, and then champion the other goals that these young ladies have by working with the other service providers so it can support generalization of these skills that they're working on. And then we're also partnering with Rise Above Poverty. They're providing also a male initiative for young men after school program and mentorship. Again, with the academic lens to support them with navigating that academic system and providing additional opportunities for them to tap into if the academics is their goal. And then now we're going to move over to CCA. CCA currently provides transition advocacy services for Syracuse schools for kids that are returning back. They provide that for 6 months. They work with them based on their goals attached to school, and usually school only, although CCA goes above and beyond. But right now, they're being allowed to expand the program so they can support those who are going wherever they're transitioning to. So if they're transitioning to Job Corps, if they're transitioning into, if they're going to EOC, now they have that person that's going to handhold them, support them, and provide that opportunity. And now we have from CCA, they're partnering with Fearless Queens, which is led by Tommy Billingsley. Tommy Billingsley is going to provide the same things that she was providing for the women's population and also what she was providing for her youth group. And most of those girls are doing the awesome things that they're supposed to be doing, are navigating society norms, okay. But now she's able to focus on that high-risk population that may not be navigating the world the way that they need and need additional extra and support. And she'll be doing that through groups as well as individualized support based on when the youth aren't meeting their goals. And now we have OnPoint. OnPoint agreed to hire me.
Hey.
So I'm coordinating / directing. Hey. And whatever you want to call it. But
what are you, the direct?
system,
you tell me what it is. Is it director or coordinator? What is it?
I hate semantic. I am the director of Project Rise.
Okay,
and they gave
I'm
me
just
that
only because
title
I'm only using the words you used for me earlier. So director of Project Rise. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I got to get it together, George. I got to own it. I am the director of Project Rise.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm directing it is because I have to build a system for these lead organizations to come to.
Okay.
And because we have never worked with this population previously. Now, there's some organizations, of course, all of them have worked with them in some kind of capacity.
Yeah.
Because they worked in the academic setting, they worked in the community setting, but they haven't been labeled as this, right? A high-risk youth. And working with a high-risk youth, you need a high-risk strategy. And none of us had a high-risk strategy.
Yeah. So,
and that's what we're helping each other to formalize.
You know, language is everything, right? And I heard this in from another group, and they use a different term. So can I just throw this term at you? They call their youth at promise, right? So
I love it.
So if they're at promise, right, it kind of shifts how we think about them, because if they're at promise, that means that we can build on what and be more hopeful. But that's just something for y'all to play with, you know. Just offering that to you.
Oh, I love that promise. That is a tap in from when they were calling them at risk.
Yes.
So that was from when it's an at risk youth. You should call them at promise youth. I'm hoping we can get there because I don't like the high risk youth, and I don't like the definition that's used by certain people regarding those youth.
And I'm just throwing it out there. But
so I agree.
Yeah. No, it's all good. But I mean, we know that
we utilize the language as semantics.
That's the language what it is.
We will never go to a kid. Yeah, right. And we will never go to a kid and say, hey, you're a high risk youth.
Right.
No, we're going to say, you know why? We're here to support you. You tell me why I'm here to support you.
Yeah. And
we both know your story. So how do you want your story to be changed?
And you know, Yolanda,
because we can't keep on harping. Huh?
No, but you know, Yolanda, that we're seeing part of the challenge that we're seeing in our community, you know, and especially with the tragedy that we had the other day with the 2 young teenagers, right? Which is still an open case, and I'll just say that. But you know, younger and younger people are out here they're out here now, right? Younger people we're seeing involved in criminal activity, and something has gone wrong. So we talked about the barriers, or I mentioned barriers. Where is this disconnect, Yolanda, between where something is amiss, right? Because in a resource-rich community with committed adults and a committed, now you could say that I'm going to suggest a committed system of adults. You might say, in your dreams, George, got you, whatever. But supposed to be, right? What's the barrier? What's the disconnect? That what is missing? Do we know?
Well, this is a Yolanda's opinion, and I'm going to start it off with that.
Okay.
I'm going to say what worked. Okay.
go ahead.
Can you froze?
Yeah, that did freeze. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. um, this is a Yolanda's opinion. And my opinion is that when I came into doing this work, we had a multitude of training. We had youth development training. We had how to work with a youth. We were able to understand. We had paraprofessional trainings that fed in to what therapeutic strategies were happening, that what was happening in the academic system. We had proactive trainings for workers. We built capacity for the workers who were doing the work. And over the years, I've seen that change. The reason why I know about data, I learned about data when I was working directly with youth. The reason why I know how to utilize trend data to change behavior and program opportunities for the youth is because I was taught that when I was a direct service worker. And I know what a function of a behavior is because I know what FBAs are. But if you are able to go and talk to someone who is working in the juvenile justice population and ask them, what meeting should you attend in order to work with your youth, in order to support them in the success of their goals? And I'm pretty sure that they would not have the answer unless they've been doing this work for about 10 to 12 years more. So we don't have the organization structures with the expectation of relentless engagement, building capacity for their employees, building in supervision so we can address the trainings and seeing how they're going within working with the young people that are receiving this intervention. We don't necessarily progress monitor. So that's one issue, right? That's system issue. Then we have this issue of people just assuming people are capable of doing the work just because they look like us. And they might have the skill, they might have the will and not necessarily the skill. And because they might be checking boxes and they just want to get someone to do the work and they want to do it real quick, they're going to take what they can get, but not provide them what is needed in order to get the job done. But then we have our families. Our families don't necessarily trust the system that we're expecting them to come to.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't create accountability for anyone.
Right. So,
and all of those pieces, and of course a whole bunch more. Like I tell everyone, we can point the finger at everyone, but there's three still coming back. We all have skin in this game, and we all have things that we haven't done.
Okay, so Yolanda, we had the Southside meeting. What do we need to look forward to, and what do you need? What's the next step for the people who are watching and listening to this?
The next steps is for us to create the implementation process. Initially, we were given 6 months to do that by the state.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, we're all in an urgency phase. We were like, we don't want to do this in 6 months. We want to start as soon as possible. But in order to start soon as possible, we have to get the grassroots up to where they need to be and have the necessary meetings in order to provide the services for the families and set up the referral portals. And what we need from the community, because the barriers currently as far as implementing these services, is that I'm looking for service providers to provide those same opportunities. We have enough people to provide instruction based on lagging skills, conflict resolution, to provide those kind of services. But we don't have those services that are going to give that interactive learning pieces. Mm-hmm. So like All Money Spends, who provides pop-up shops and are able to create sweatshirts with the youth, but then also align their conversations why this thing is important to their life and to their goals. And then now we will need someone to come in to do, so maybe jewelry making, hair braiding, whatever these goals are as far as career choices, things that these youth want to do, we need opportunity to practice them so they can see that there's opportunity within that. So instead of telling them what's available, show them what's available.
Show and tell. All right, Yolanda. So the next meeting has not been set for whatever part of town just yet, but you're looking for commitment. How do people buy in? No. How do people commit? What's the way they do that?
The way that they would commit is based on who they are, right? So they can reach out to me. My number is 315-766-4885. We can discuss how you want to be a part of this. And then we can discuss what your expertise area is. And then we can also see what you have to offer. And we're willing to hear from any and everybody so we all can be a part of this process, because we can do a lot with one person, but we can do a lot more with all of us together. And so we're looking for opportunities for these youth. So community wrap around this project. This is for 13 to 18-year-olds, and the city's providing services for 18 to 25-year-olds. And we're just trying to see what works and look at the data. If we need to restructure, we want feedback. And we don't feel like we have all the answers. We're just trying to provide something and see what else we need to do and work out the kinks.
315.
So next steps is providing some programming and training.
315-766-4885 is the phone number. 315-766-4885. That's how you holler at Yolanda Seegars and commit
Please do
to supporting Project Rise for 13 to 18-year-olds in the city of Syracuse, both boys and girls. Well, Yolanda, you keep us posted when the next meeting is so we can let everybody know so they can show up and be a part of the solution.
Absolutely.
Not a part of the problem. Thank you for joining us on the program. Anything we missed that you need to remind us of?
No, I just didn't say Project Save is providing conflict resolution for us, and that's by Sean Herring. And Diversify New York is providing entrepreneurship and financial literacy. And so I think I got all the grassroots, but we also have a grassroots coalition. So if you have a skill set that you want to build upon, we do have monthly meetings where we all get together and basically have an iron sharpens iron approach, so we all can be a part of this process.
All right, Yolanda Seegars, thank you so much. 315-766-4885 here on Inspiration for the Nation. Thank you.
Thank you.